And sometimes you just need a comic to make you laugh and feel good. Just like, ha, ha, ha. Welcome to Kicking Trees, Canada's premier comic book podcast. I'm Carter.
And I'm Xander.
Today we're going to be talking top 10 Marvel run recommendations. The only rule for this is that it has to be a completed run, so no current ongoings. And we have to have read the entire run. And if we're being real, neither of us has read a ton from before the year 2000, so a lot of modern stuff here. So let's get right into it. I'll go first with my little handy dandy notebook.
All right.
Okay, number 1 on my list. This one holds a very special place in my heart. It is Deadpool by Jerry Dugan. Brian Posh, he helped Jerry Dugan write it at the beginning, but eventually it was just Jerry Dugan. The artist was ever changing on it, but it is a fantastic series, the best Deadpool run to have ever been made. It really elevated the character, made him popular. This is when Deadpool had like 5 ongoings at a time, and then it really highlights he's just a sad guy. He just wants to be loved, and he just struggles with that. And then the final series in that run is called The Despicable Deadpool, and it's just about him hating himself. It makes for a good read.
I remember when you were collecting, I would read random issues, and it was always a 10 out of 10.
Number 2 on my list is House of X, Powers of 10 by Jonathan Hickman. You have to read them together, and it is a fantastic, mind-blowing experience. The art is fantastic, and it gets the X-Men started in the Krakoan era. It's just an entirely new status quo for the X-Men to be following. I was a big fan of the Krakoan age, and it is very dense sci-fi, so if you're a fan of sci-fi, you should have no problem following it. You don't need to know X-Men history, you need to have a just go with its sense for dense sci-fi concepts. What are your thoughts on this?
I also love those two put together. I might hold like the finale part of Krakoa with Fall of the House of X and Rise of the Powers as a bit higher.
Really?
There's some really good stuff in that too.
Interesting.
I like how dark the certain X-Men get with how they've been massacred, so they're really angry, and how they don't really care about the bad guys living anymore.
That's true, but also at that point, each X-Men has killed at least like one person. Aside from Kitty, probably, at that point.
Kitty was my main example.
Yeah.
She did it pretty amazingly.
She did.
Possibly my favorite part.
She went full ninja, phasing through people. I think she phased a guy's heart out of his chest. It was very cool action scenes.
Yeah.
I just read New Mutants by Zeb Wells, and that was in the Utopia era. And Danny Moonstar is killing people, and so is Cannonball.
I did not expect that from Cannonball as much.
Cannonball was upset at the end that he did it. That's a prime difference with Marvel and DC that doesn't get talked about a ton. Most Marvel characters outside of Spider-Man and Daredevil has intentionally killed an enemy in some capacity. That's why a lot of Marvel heroes, they don't have massive rogues galleries.
Yeah, if a DC did it, it would probably kind of ruin who they are as a person.
Yes.
For the most part, a lot of them, it would ruin them.
And the universe, the rest of the heroes would turn on them immediately.
Yeah.
But Marvel has a lot of more morally gray stuff, like
It makes a
A lot of interesting stories happen and come out, yeah.
because the hero can be pushed to that point, and you never know if they will be.
Yeah, but you know Superman would not do that.
No. But that's what makes a Superman story good.
Yeah.
It's complicated, but that is the main difference in the universe.
Both positives and both negatives.
Yeah. Number 3 on my list is another very precious, near and dear for me one. It is Gwenpool by Christopher Hastings and Guru. I don't know if I pronounced Guru correctly. Let me know. The art in this is fantastic. It looks like Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I just love Gwenpool. It is a story about her trying to become relevant in the Marvel universe, and also just learning to accept herself, because before she came to Earth 616, she lived in our world, and she was not in education, she was unemployed, she wasn't in any training, she was a NEET. She was just reading comics all day. So she came to the Marvel universe to get a sense of purpose.
I don't have much of an opinion on Gwenpool because I haven't read any of it, but I do have her whole omnibus, and I'm very excited to read it from what you've told me.
It's great.
Yeah, I believe you.
Number 4 is XFactor by Peter David, specifically his XFactor Investigations run. This run made me love Jamie Madrox. He's just a really cool guy. He's sort of losing control of his duplicates in this run, so they kind of run off and do their own thing. He can't trust them because he can't trust himself. The team dynamics are great stuff. We got Strong Guy, Wolfsbane, Monet was a standout in this series, and it's a longer run. So they go through several Marvel events, but you don't have to know what's happening in the Marvel events to enjoy this story, because Peter David was able to make the story his own in XFactor.
That's another one where I don't know anything about it yet, but you've convinced me to get an omnibus for it again, and I have to read it still.
Because it's so good.
One thing I already appreciate is the team it's all like out of the box characters.
Yeah, none of them are someone you would think to base a series around.
Yeah. That excites me.
And it's good.
Yeah.
Number 5, Howard the Duck by Chip Zdarsky.
I was not expecting that one.
I loved Howard the Duck by Chip Zdarsky. When it was coming out, I looked forward to every issue because I knew I'd have at least a few chuckles. And sometimes you just need a comic to make you laugh and feel good. Just like, ha, ha, ha.
And guess what?
What?
I have the omnibus for that. Haven't read it yet.
Because
Again.
I'm a great story
Yeah.
salesman to you.
You are.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Howard the Duck. He doesn't appear in a ton, but I've watched his movie when I was a little kid, the live action movie, and I've just been interested in him ever since. I've read his Max series. I was probably too young to be reading his Max series when I read his Max series. At one point, I can't even go into what happens in the Max series because it's just too inappropriate for YouTube.
I would agree. From what you've told me again, I don't think we should discuss it.
No.
No.
It came out in like late 2002, and nothing was off limits in that series. But Chip Zdarsky's family-friendly good time. Next up, for number 6, I have Next Wave by Warren Ellis. You thought it was going to be Thunderbolts.
I did.
No, I love Next Wave because he reinvented basically everyone on that team, and the personalities they had on that team is what they are like now to this day. So Machine Man, before Next Wave, he wasn't talking about hating fleshy ones and murder and all that, but that's just who he is now. And he's better for it because now he's hilarious. Same with Elsa Bloodstone. She's a popular character now. She wears orange and has orange hair and a bad attitude. That is nothing like she was in her original miniseries by Brian K. Vaughan. She was even blonde in that, but she was wearing something more like her dad, Ulysses Bloodstone, with like cargo shorts and whatever. And she was kind of ditzy in that series. Whereas Warren Ellis, he turned her into a badass. And then also just a lot of really funny jokes, like when Fin Fang Foom was going to put a boom boom in his pants.
Yeah, that was great. This is one I have read, and it was a hilarious comic throughout.
Hilarious stuff. And then Devil Dinosaur comes out with a little top hat and cane at one point.
Some truly ridiculous stuff that might not be to everyone's comedy tastes, but no, I thought it was funny.
It's very funny.
Yeah.
And it's the kinds of stories you can only see in a comic book.
Yes.
Number 7, so it's not Superior Spider-Man, it's Superior Spider-Man Team Up.
That was better than Superior Spider-Man?
It was kind of better than Superior Spider-Man.
Right.
Superior Spider-Man, everyone recommends that. Everyone's read it. But the Team Up book, so it started in Avenging Spider-Man, moved on to Superior Spider-Man Team Up. It's by Chris Yost. And the main Superior Spider-Man series, they had a lot to go through in a little over a year before they had to bring back Peter Parker for the release of Amazing Spider-Man 2. So it feels pretty rushed at times, and he doesn't interact with everyone you'd want him to interact with. But the Team Up book, he's talking to like Wolverine and stuff and other heroes, of course. And you get a lot of great smaller character moments in that.
Okay, I can see how that would be better then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Number 8, I have Uncanny Avengers, not Rick Remender's, because I haven't read that one, but Jerry Dugan's. The first story of this run, it's not the greatest, so you have to give it 2 chances. Get to story 2 and then it picks up. This is when Deadpool first joined the Avengers, and it was a great companion book to Jerry Dugan's main Deadpool title. And it is where Deadpool and Rogue, they start to kindle a little romance.
So that's something I thought was pretty gross at first, just because of Deadpool's face. But then as I was reading your comics there, I
did think they were great together.
You were like, I'm going to get over this ableist attitude.
Yes, I did. I just think Deadpool just looks so gross, and kissing him grosses me out.
They're led by Captain America, and they're fighting the Red Skull, who has grafted the mind of Charles Xavier onto his own mind, so he has telepathy. But Deadpool is kind of immune to telepathy, so Deadpool is their secret weapon against him. And
Old Man Captain America?
It is Old Man Captain America, and then it becomes Hydra Captain America. But I think he leaves the team at that point. I don't remember. Yeah, it's a rough go of it.
Yeah.
But it really showed Deadpool's heroic side and how he wants to do good. He was even financing the team at that time. Next up, my only story from before the year 2000. It's the original Squadron Supreme 12-issue maxi limited series. This one, I am pretty sure, was the inspiration for the Injustice video game story and its accompanying comic books. Features the Squadron Supreme, who are all, parallels? They're supposed to be the Justice League very clearly, and then it follows why don't superheroes try to make the world a perfect place? So they try to get rid of world hunger, they make the governments have to come to them, they get rid of crime by brainwashing people, brainwashing criminals, and it's like, is this for the better? Nighthawk's against all this. And then they just talk a lot of good politicaling, and they get at odds with each other.
About like if it makes them more like dictators or something?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like Injustice, beat for beat.
Yeah.
They ripped off the rip-offs.
I would say Injustice could have used more of the gray where Superman could wonder, am I doing the right thing? Instead, he was pretty...
He was just too evil in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still love that comic, but that would have been cool to have some Clark Kent wondering, what am I doing?
It's slightly less interesting a story.
Yeah.
Injustice, this is a popular term right now. Injustice is cool moments, cool fights, and aura farming.
That does describe why I love that comic.
Yeah. which is a valid reason to like a comic, but the meat and potatoes of it needed a second draft, I find. That's my opinion. Number 10 on my list is Astonishing XMen by Joss Whedon. Now, when people go around recommending where to get started on X-Men, a lot of people recommend New X-Men by Grant Morrison. But Astonishing X-Men is a much more digestible read. I love New X-Men, don't get me wrong, but the X-Men are fighting Charles Xavier's long-lost twin sister who he consumed in the womb and is now like a psychic lingering around, and they're fighting a sentient bacteria, John Sublime. It's hard for new readers to get on board all that because it's all just ridiculous sci-fi.
That is some crazy stuff to follow right off the bat if you're first getting into comics.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Joss Whedon, though, in his Astonishing X-Men, they're fighting an alien. They're fighting against a mutant cure. They do other stuff in the back half. I don't remember. It's just, that's already what they were kind of doing in the movies, so it's great for new readers. And John Cassaday, fantastic artist.
Mm-hmm.
I do like Frank Quietly, but I also acknowledge that Frank Quietly is an acquired taste, whereas everyone loves John Cassaday art.
That is true. I also love that art.
Yeah. And that is my top 10.
Awesome. And we did not have many doubles this time, like with the Batman stuff.
We had some doubles, though?
We had one double.
Ooh.
Astonishing XMen by Joss Whedon.
That's a
great story.
great way to
great
get
run
acquainted with the X-Men.
Yeah. That was the first X-Men story I ever read. It was the first thing that got me into X-Men. I read it as a child and everything. And yeah, if I can understand it and follow it perfectly as a child, it's perfect for new readers, I would say.
Whereas new X-Men, you would be like, what is happening right now, reading it as a child?
As a child, I did read some Grant Morrison stories, and I didn't understand what was happening, or I just didn't get it really, so I thought it wasn't that good, and I avoided Grant Morrison for a bit.
Oh.
But now that I'm older, I do appreciate their writing a bit more. Or not a bit more, a lot more. Yeah.
Grant Morrison writes stories that are only for hardcore comic fans.
Yeah, I feel like they don't consider new readers when writing their stories, which I don't mind. It's just not something we should recommend to new readers.
No, I love that.
Yeah, they make some really good stuff.
Yeah, because a lot of Grant Morrison is also about the metafiction of it all.
Yeah, which is super fun.
It is, but you also have to write a decent amount of comic books to understand the metafiction of it.
Yeah, and they do a great job at it, I would say, better than anyone could.
Mm-hmm.
On to my top 10 again.
All right, so you got Astonishing X-Men.
Astonishing X-Men, that was the only double.
Excellent.
Next, New Avengers by Brian Michael Bendis. As Astonishing X-Men was my first X-Men story, this was my first Avengers run that I read, also read as a child, but very much still appreciated as an adult. They have an amazing way of going through the Marvel Universe, event by event, and having it affect the team throughout the entire run. There's a lot of beautiful character dynamics and great dialogue. I would say a highlight is it goes through Civil War, and that really puts a crack in the Marvel Universe, and it shows very much in that comic. And I always appreciate when an event actually has an effect on the universe.
The team cracks up when they do that.
Yeah, they have to split up the team. It changes into New Avengers and Mighty Avengers.
Have you read Mighty Avengers?
I've read most of it. And it's still really good, actually.
People always forget about Mighty Avengers.
Yeah, I think because everyone was Team Captain America, so they stuck with the New Avengers, and Mighty Avengers was Team Iron Man, so...
Mighty also had a lot of B characters.
Yeah.
That team. It's hard to compete when New Avengers still has Spider-Man and Wolverine on it.
Yeah, that's true.
And Mighty, I think, had Wonder Man,
Ms. Marvel,
Ares.
who eventually switched to New Avengers. Ares, yeah.
Yeah, that's not...
That one was a bit messier, too, because then Bendis didn't even write the last bit. Dan Slott took over.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I haven't actually read New Avengers, but I am planning on it soon.
If I ever have to recommend comics to anyone at all, New Avengers is going to be mentioned. That is for sure. Next up, I've got The Vision by Tom King.
One moment. One last thing. If you want to get into the Marvel Universe, you really only need just read Astonishing X-Men and New Avengers and just keep with it.
Actually, that's very true, yeah.
Then you get everything you need to know.
Because the older stuff might be mentioned sometimes, but it's not like something you really have to read to
No.
understand what's going on ever.
Just keep following those lines.
Yeah,
Astonishing switches to Uncanny. Or it doesn't change, but Uncanny switches to the main one again at some point.
and it'll still cover many iconic storylines and everything, many events.
Anything anyone's talking about for MCU stuff, it starts with Astonishing and Uncanny.
Yeah, that is very true.
Except for Dark Phoenix, but whatever. Aside from that.
Yeah. Then, next up, we got The Vision by Tom King. That is just a great 12-issue series that you could read. It's fairly self-contained. There's one issue where they go through Avengers history, but you don't have to know the history because it's telling you the history pretty much.
It's more of a Vision and Wanda's romance history.
Yeah. And it's just a beautiful story where Vision tries to create a little robot family for himself because he's lonely, and there's very much drama and some philosophy that gets into their ways.
There's a ton of philosophy in that series.
Okay, not some philosophy.
There's a ton.
Where Tom King writes, philosophy follows.
Yeah.
That's always...
That's why you love Tom King.
I do. I love the philosophy he throws in there every time. That's where he gets me.
That Vision is very much the story of robot. It's the Pinocchio story perfected.
Like, is he human or not?
Because he wants to be human.
Yeah, I would say so.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And the names of the two stories, the volumes,
Yes. Oh, little better than a man, little worse than... Little worse...
little better than a beast or something. Little worse than a man, little better than a beast. Something like that.
I think you might have just gotten it there. Little worse than a man, and then I think little better than a beast is the other
The
one.
coolest names ever.
Fantastic.
Right up there with Ed Brubaker naming one of his Captain America stories, Death of the Dream.
Burden of Dreams.
Oh, Burden of Dreams?
That's what I think is the better name, yeah.
Death of the Dreams is a different one, though.
I think there is something called Death of the Dreams.
I do like Burden of Dreams. That's the one I was like. The Burden of Dreams.
Having to carry that,
oh my
the
God.
image of Captain America is a burden.
Oh my God. The
Yeah.
Burden of Dreams?
Yeah. Which is a great segue because the next one on my list, which you didn't even know, Captain America by Ed Brubaker.
I haven't read that either.
I'm thinking about it. Best Captain America run to ever exist.
How many
in my
Captain
opinion.
America runs have you read?
Like 3.
Okay.
Best one out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are the 3 you've read?
I've read a large chunk of the Mark Gruenwald run. I've read this one and the recent one that was Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing, I thought it was okay.
Okay. He's read the Mark Gruenwald run, though, folks. Some street cred for you.
Yeah. That's some great stuff right
Yeah.
there. It's like very iconic Captain America stuff.
That's what all Captain America stories are based off of now,
Yeah,
pretty much.
is a lot of the Gruenwald stuff. That's where U.S. Agent first comes into play, and a lot of stuff I didn't expect to come from Captain America actually came from that as well.
Like what?
There was odd upgrades that the Tinkerer did to certain villains. I don't even remember entirely who, but those upgrades stuck to those characters.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So Mark Gruenwald also wrote Squadron Supreme, and he's a legendary Marvel writer just because of his love of continuity in comic books. So he also wrote a Quasar run, and a fun fact about that, they have, who's the Grandmaster, I think. Someone hosts a big race to see who's the fastest in the universe. They have Quicksilver there, they have Speed Demon, and then you know who wins the race? Do you know who wins the race?
Barry Allen.
Barry Allen.
Yeah.
Barry Allen from the DC universe. He had semi-recently died during the Crisis, but no, he didn't die. He shows up and wins that race in the Marvel universe.
Yeah. What was he called in that?
They called him Buried Alien.
Oh, yes. But it was Barry Allen.
Yeah.
Yeah. They just couldn't say that, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But pretty awesome stuff. I've read that issue. I haven't read that Quasar run, but I've read just that issue
Where'd you
because
read
it
that
sounds
issue?
awesome. Marvel Unlimited.
Ah.
Yeah. And it was quite good. I haven't gotten to reading that whole run yet just because Quasar, it's just a tougher sell for me.
I've been wanting to read Quasar, but I can't find it collected in anything. So I
Yeah,
have
I don't
also
think
only
I've
read
ever
that
seen
issue.
trades for Quasar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quasar also has that famous cover where he's pregnant. Have you seen that cover?
No, I haven't.
I'll have it on screen. It's pretty funny.
All right. I look forward to seeing it.
And I have one stray comment about Vision.
What?
His current costume. He has that like red diamond on his chest, right?
Yeah.
His skin's red.
Yeah.
Is he showing some cleave right now?
That's also kind of how I felt about I think it was his all new, all different costume, is there was a lot
of red.
around.
Is he just honing it up a bit?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so too.
And I'm a supporter of
He
it.
saw Power Girl and he was like, she's onto something
I'm
there.
digging that look, yeah.
Okay, continue your list. I just need to get that off my chest.
Yeah. Rightfully so. Next up, we got Hawkeye by Matt Fraction, which is also something that is iconic to the character, I would say. It did change his personality a bit for a while, and that kind of bothered me.
Yeah, he was a completely different guy in that, is my understanding.
But I feel like they've kind of changed it back to, it's like kind of a mixture of the two personalities nowadays. Like he's still kind of more angry and stuff instead of the chill guy that he is in the Matt Fraction run. And also that run introduced me to Kate Bishop, who is now one of my favorite characters. I love her in that run, and they have a brilliant dynamic between the two of them.
Having her in that with Clint was a great idea on Matt Fraction's part.
Yeah, it was.
Because
it just makes sense.
It made her a mainstay Marvel character.
Yeah, that is the reason she's the biggest Young Avenger.
Easily, because she was used in something else.
Other than Young Avengers,
Yeah.
yeah.
Take notes, Marvel.
Yeah, and it just made her so likable. I still think they should have a Hawkeye ongoing with the two of them. But I guess they tried it again after the Matt Fraction run. It got canceled a couple times, and they might be scared to do it again. I don't know.
Was it with the two of them when Jeff Lemire was writing it?
It was.
Oh.
I was collecting it at first, and I just didn't love it. And then Kelly Thompson took over, I think, for Kate Bishop.
For the
solo
Kate Bishop
series.
one, yeah.
But I liked that still.
Okay.
And then Clint eventually showed up in it, and it got even better. And then West Coast Avengers with both of them was also great.
Now, we both loved West Coast Avengers by Kelly Thompson, but our papa hated it.
I think the people also hate, it did not get far.
No,
I think it was like 8 issues.
Yeah. So, justice for Kelly Thompson's West Coast Avengers.
Greatly underrated one. Mm-hmm. And then next up, I got Thunderbolts by Warren Ellis. That is just an amazingly written comic. It has a lot of characters who are often nowhere to be seen, and it makes them all extremely cool people and just worthy of being people's favorite characters after that run.
The thing with that run is it's only 2 volumes, so I think it's only 12 issues.
Around there, yeah.
And Andy Diggle takes over for volume 3 or whatever, and it maintains that quality.
I didn't continue after Warren Ellis because I was afraid it wouldn't.
I only have that 1 volume by Andy Diggle, and I couldn't find any more. But that Andy Diggle volume was also really good.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't want to say too much about it because every issue has some cool thing that I don't want to spoil if someone does read it, but it's amazing stuff.
That also, for who should be on the Avengers, you should throw Songbird, throw her a bone.
She does
Put her
not
on the
get
Avengers.
respect.
No.
She's amazing in this run, and she's shown up in some random stuff, some random Thunderbolt stuff since, but it's...
She hasn't been in anything significant.
Yeah.
She was a playable character in Ultimate Alliance, too.
I did not even know that.
I think.
Was that around the time of this comic?
Yeah, so
Yeah?
Venom, Mac Gargan Venom's on there, too. And
Oh, okay.
Penance is playable.
Is that a Civil War?
Yeah, they do Civil War and Sword of Annihilation, I think.
I kind of remember that. I was quite young when that game came out. Next up is a rather recent one, Immortal XMen by Kieran Gillen, part of that Krakoa age.
Just Immortal XMen on its own.
Yes.
Interesting.
I thought about House of X and Powers of X,
Yeah.
but it felt complicated to put those two in there. I don't know why, just they're funny runs.
They're collected together in a trade.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, well,
They alternate issues.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
That's amazing that they did
It
that,
is.
actually. I love that they did
They
that.
definitely thought ahead there.
Yeah. But yeah, Immortal X-Men is just like the head of Krakoa mutants discussing political issues and stuff, and that might not sound that exciting, but they really make it very interesting. All the dialogue and all the conversations are very, very good.
So are you saying you like politics in your comic books?
Yes.
Yeah, comic books.
Period.
They're purely politics.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, of course I do, and then I like every comic has politics.
Yeah.
Civil War is based off of politics,
It
and
is.
it's one of the most famous storylines.
Yeah.
Captain America is a purely political character. He's made off of politics.
Yeah.
Anyone who says otherwise is, I don't want to be mean here, completely stupid though.
Oh my word.
They don't understand what they're reading, or they're not reading comic books if they say they're not political.
Oh my word.
Yeah.
You're accusing them of having a low reading. Wait, what the...
Low reading literacy, or yeah, is that how to put it? I don't know, but they don't understand what they're reading. Captain America is pretty much propaganda himself as a person when he showed up in the World War,
Yeah, but he never actually stands for the American government.
which I also is more politics
Yeah,
because the government does immoral things and he's against it in a political way.
he is always against whatever the government's doing in his stories, which
Yeah.
is interesting. And people don't assume that when they haven't read a Captain America story.
No, because he's what the America should be
Yeah.
for the most part instead of what they are. He fights for the American dream. It's just that America often can't quite get to that dream. And Immortal X-Men just doesn't shy away from it being political. It would be completely shocking if one of the people who don't think comics are political read Immortal X-Men and still thought, yeah, that was not about politics one bit.
Do they even ever fight in Immortal XMen?
It might be all
No, they...
just making deals with each other and stuff and like
Yeah.
putting things to votes. They fight a bit in the end with Mr. Sinister.
I remember that now, yeah.
Oh, and they do amazing things with Mr. Sinister's character in that run as well.
I do like how flamboyant Mr. Sinister was in the Krakoan era.
It made him more fun to me.
Yes.
Yeah, I like him a lot more like
I
that.
agree.
I hope he stays like that.
He's coming back around in X-Men soonish, I believe.
Hopefully he's still that
Yeah,
flamboyant
that'd
guy.
be better.
He was hilarious.
Yeah, that rascal.
Also, he really earns the name Mr. Sinister in that comic because he has just these very diabolical and hard to think of plans.
Yeah.
That
True.
stuff with Moira's clones and stuff, it's...
Some dense sci-fi.
It is, but it all checks out. It's
Yeah.
all just like, damn, that's a good plan.
Immortal X-Men is one of those comic books where I'm like, it makes sense that manga is destroying the comic industry. Manga can be enjoyed by children.
Yeah.
Most comics cannot be enjoyed by children.
A lot of Krakoa X-Men, if a child picked up a random issue, they would be like, what is happening?
Yeah, it's just...
Actually, I
You
think
can't
if
understand
I
it.
wasn't reading all the comics before it, if I picked up a random issue in the middle of Krakoa, I would be thinking, what's going on here?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You'd just be confused.
Yeah.
They'd be like, a Moira engine to
Yeah.
alter the timeline. What?
You know, a lot of timeline stuff and then like protections against
Yeah.
certain timelines, which it was crazy stuff, amazing stuff.
It all made sense, too,
Yes.
is the thing.
If you were following the whole thing.
If you gave it a think, you're like, my word.
Yeah. Yeah.
That checks out.
Just beautifully written.
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan Hickman.
That was by Kieran Gillen, wasn't it?
I'm just talking about all the all the
Oh.
Krakoa stuff. Like
Yeah.
he made such an amazing baseline
He
for
did.
them to go off of. And then next up, also was like a companion to the Krakoa era, Iron Man by Jerry Dugan.
That made your list?
I really liked
You
that.
really
comic.
liked okay. I liked that one too.
It bumped up a level of liking Iron Man for me.
Iron Man is obviously very popular because of the MCU,
Yeah.
but he doesn't have a ton of fans, it seems, most of the time.
Yeah, like I have troubles wanting to collect his comic
Mhm.
most of the time. But Jerry Dugan did amazing stuff with him.
I did like that quite a bit.
Yeah, and then as what happens sometimes, I had to get through the first arc. He was only okay, but then the rest was truly amazing. And I really liked how connected it was to the Krakoa stuff. And then he had that marriage with Emma Frost, which was also
Yeah.
very
Yeah,
interesting.
she was a main supporting character in that comic, which I liked.
Yeah, giving people weird supporting characters is always a big win for me. And you wouldn't expect Emma Frost to be one for Iron Man.
No.
And then it definitely seemed like an editorial thing for that marriage to end by the end of his run, which can often lead to like a poorly written conclusion, but I thought he did it beautifully. having to end their marriage. Like they had like that little talk in the restaurant, and then she didn't want to be there
Yeah.
fully. It was like it was an emotional conversation
It
they
was.
had. Yeah.
Mhm.
Next up is The Ultimates by Mark Miller, because I can't recommend any current Ultimate Universe stuff right now because they're all ongoing runs.
But if you would, you could. If you could, you would.
I
If
would.
you could, you would.
It's quite the statement to say already, but I like a lot of the Ultimate stuff right now better than the past Ultimate stuff.
I think I like the current Ultimates run better than Mark Miller's Ultimates run.
And it's they're both great. It's just the current one is so
Current
good.
Ultimates is so good.
It is. Same with Ultimate
Yeah.
Spider-Man. The last one was really good, but this one is just so
So
good.
good. Every issue of Ultimates, I have to have a think.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Dennis Camp, he's putting a real message in here.
And I had never even heard of him as a writer before this. He just
No, me
completely
neither.
surprised
Yeah.
us. Oh, it's
Great stuff.
But enough about the current one. The last one, the Mark Miller run. It's not as thought-provoking, that's for sure.
No.
But it's just a lot of cool stuff happening over and over again.
Now, a lot of people nowadays, they don't like the Mark Miller Ultimates run. What is your thought on that?
That, I don't know how much of an opinion I can have on it because I read it in grade 8. So
Oh.
it's just cool stuff happening over and over
You're like,
again.
that's pretty
And
cool.
as I was like 12 or something, I was like, that's really cool.
Pretty cool.
Why don't they like it now?
So a lot of people, when they talk about it, I think they're lumping it in with Ultimatum of being too edgy.
Okay.
But I didn't find the original Ultimates story especially edgy.
No,
Hulk was eating people.
I'm cool with
You're
that.
cool with that? Makes him kind of monstrous, but they also try to make him a hero at the same time.
Who was he eating in the Ultimates?
He was just eating humans.
Really?
Yeah.
And then he was still fighting with the team?
Yeah.
I forgive him.
Okay.
He's a monster. What can you do?
What can
You need the Hulk's help. You got to accept he's going to eat some
Yeah.
people.
And then people do lump it in with the Jeff Loeb Ultimate stuff. But
That's
you're-
not fair
No, that's
at
not.
all. You should not do that ever.
No.
That's not the same comic.
So I've seen people say that Captain America was racist. He wasn't actually racist.
No, he was more of a dick than the normal Captain America,
Yeah.
but he wasn't fully racist.
He was of his times at first, but then he quickly learned
Yeah.
within less than one issue.
Yeah, which is more than a lot of people can
Yeah.
say. And I really like. I was wondering if people had a problem with him saying, "Do you think this A on my head stands for France?" Or do people still love that?
I still find that hilarious.
I think that's an amazing line. Okay, and then my last one is one I just recently read, Daredevil by Chip Zdarsky.
Ooh, I should have had that on my list.
Yeah, I really thought you would. Chip Zdarsky, I didn't collect that as a monthly comic because I only saw Chip Zdarsky as like a comedic writer at first, and I was like, what's he going to do with Daredevil? And then that comic started coming out, I started hearing more about it, and as each month came by and a new Daredevil came out, I regretted it more and more.
Because I was collecting it monthly.
Yeah.
And I kept telling you and Papa.
Yeah,
I was like,
God.
Chip Zdarsky's really killing it on this Daredevil run.
That
It's
was one
so
of the
good.
worst comic decisions I've ever made, was not collecting that run monthly.
It's good stuff.
And I just got the full series in trades, and I just read trade after trade in like a week because it was just that good. I couldn't stop reading
You
it.
finished it in 1 week?
The first, I didn't get the whole run in 1 week. I got the first, before Daredevil and Elektra started, that main first run,
Because it
leading up into Devil's
relaunched.
Reign. Yeah. And it was just amazing stuff. It did great stuff with Kingpin as mayor and stuff, and
Yeah.
once again, having to fight him kind of politically, because that's what happens in
Yeah.
comic books. And there's cool stuff with cops and dirty cops, and the difference between the law and what's right. And I think that's peak Daredevil stuff, peak Daredevil content.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's when Elektra becomes Daredevil, and she has one of the coolest costumes ever.
Oh my god, and just her becoming Daredevil at all is just a great idea.
It is.
Yeah. And whenever Spider-Man shows up in that comic, it's some of the best written Spider-Man I've ever seen.
Because they respect him.
He actually has respect as a hero,
Yeah.
and he's not just being shit on like in his actual ongoing series.
Making Elektra a Daredevil works well for that character, because then it lets other writers easily put her in other stories, in other things.
Yeah, because she's doing hero stuff and not just
Yeah.
assassin stuff.
Because people like Elektra, but if she wasn't Daredevil, like that upcoming Thunderbolts team that she's on,
Yeah,
it makes
why would
sense
she
for
be
her as
there?
Daredevil to be on that team, but she wouldn't have been there as Elektra.
Yeah, I agree with that. It gives her more of a purpose with what she's doing.
Yeah. Is that your list?
Oh yeah, that was 10 right there, yeah.
All right.
I think it was 10. Yeah, it was 10.
How much? We only had one overlap. That was pretty good.
Yeah, completely unplanned. A lot better than the Batman one. We might have had 3, I think.
3 or 4.
Maybe even 4, yeah.
Yes.
That's almost half.
And there was good just character variety, I would say.
Marvel is often better for that.
Yeah,
well, I
that's
guess
true.
we were doing just a Batman top 10 before though. So that's not going to be character variety.
We didn't have any Fantastic Four.
I've only read one complete collection of the Jonathan Hickman Fantastic Four, but just from that, I assume if I read the rest of it, it would be in there.
Okay. I read all of your trades of Jonathan Hickman's Fantastic Four when you had it on a coffee table,
Yeah.
and it was great stuff.
Jonathan Hickman rarely, if ever, fails us with
No.
comics.
And again with that, a lot of dense sci-fi.
Yes. I would put him in the same category as Grant Morrison, where I don't think Jonathan Hickman thinks much about new readers when he's writing.
No, and I think that is why so many people are preferring the absolute stuff to the Ultimate Universe. the current Ultimate Universe, because the knowledge to enter and fully appreciate the current Ultimate Universe, it's a much higher bar in the Gateway.
And it's pretty contradictory to what the Ultimate Universe was supposed to be originally, I would say.
It is.
Yeah.
It's not an easy jumping on point for new readers.
Because that initial miniseries that made the Ultimate Universe, there's so much information in those that you just have to know to understand the current universe it's in.
It really built upon old things really well.
But it's just, it's less for newer readers. An Absolute Universe, I think overall is just, it's less complicated and less beautifully written, but it's good stuff for...
Absolute Batman, a kid could pick up.
Yeah.
And enjoy.
A little violent for some kids, I suppose, but it's good. I would say same for every other Absolute comic I've read. Superman and Martian Manhunter might be a bit much for a child. I think they might think it's boring.
That one wasn't very action-y.
Yeah.
Batman is very...
A kid is always going to like Batman.
Yeah, Absolute Batman is very much fights and aura moments.
Yeah, let's see that cool stuff happen.
So that's our top 10 Marvel recommendations. Let us know what you think, and what do you recommend? Let us know in the comments.